Hello, and welcome to Baki Season 2, Episode 4. The 4, of course, standing for Team Formed, which is the name of this episode. Man, that pun was a lot better in my head. But I'm sure that my guest can save this episode, as we've got another returning guest all the way back from Episode 3, our good friend Phil.
Hello. It's great to be back. What's up, Baki crew?
Yeah, there we go. Haven't heard that one.
Talk about bringing it back.
Yeah, seriously. So Phil, I've struggled with returning guests to come up with a good question because we all know you, of course, from that 30 minutes 8 months ago. But I wanted to ask you this fun question. If they were to make a live-action adaptation of Baki and you got to cast one of the characters, which character would you choose and who would you cast them?
Oh, wow. That's a tough question. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it would be necessarily age appropriate, but I feel like Samuel L. Jackson could really carry Mr. Oliver. Like, something about it, he could really, like maybe they could do that thing where like they CGI him to make him younger and just use his face, but I think he'd really like have some great quips.
The thing is, like, Mr. Oliver is, to me, he's almost like the Hulk. Like, I think you would need to entirely CG his body.
Oh, 100%. Oh, if you've ever seen the clips when they were trying to fill Thanos, and it's just Josh Brolin wearing this, like, ridiculously large suit, but there'd just be his head. It'd be, like, a lot of that, I think.
I would be very down for that. That'd be fun. I was trying to think, who would I get to play Yujiro? And then I was thinking, who has red hair? And the only one I could think of is the guy who plays Archie on Riverdale. But I don't think that he would be a very good Yujiro. I also probably want an Asian actor.
That would be a really tough casting one, especially Yujiro. But...
Oh, you know who could do it? The guy from Squid Game, because he dyes his hair red at the end.
Perfect.
Yeah.
It's a really, like, big, beefy guy when I think of, like, casting decisions.
Yeah. Anywho, so let's jump into this episode, because this is a fun one. Honestly, this I love the RaiTai tournament. It's fun from beginning to end. Mm-hmm. So the episode starts with just a little brief recap of the previous episode with Biscuit Oliver. So Biscuit Oliver hadn't been introduced in your episode originally. I feel like this would probably be the first time you've seen it, but I know you've watched a few episodes.
I did watch up until now, and I'm sure it's been talked to you to death about the whole, like, crushing him into a diamond. But just, like, again, and we'll get, I think this episode is when we really get into it, but they just keep introducing these Kaiohs as, like, the best martial artists, and I don't think any fight is longer than 30 seconds. Like, he just literally gets just bodied into, like, this crumpled little pile of bones, I assume, on the ground, which is just, like, awful in its own right, but at the same time just...
There's honestly, I think there's only one fight in the first round in which it goes more than one move, and that's we'll get to Kaio versus Kaio Jakku after this, because that's the only, and that one is one of the worst fights probably in the series.
It's got to be up there, but as they say, Biscuit Oliver, he's got power, which is strength, which is just equal to a massive body, which I mean is true.
Yeah.
That other guy thought he was tough, but he is no match for the Biscuit Oliver.
So I write down notes for every episode, and what I realized was 90% of my notes for this episode is from the MVP, the narrator, or the announcer for this episode. Mm-hmm. So his first quote that I loved was,
"Look at him flaunting his body! You'd never see a Chinese martial artist showing off like that!
You'd never see a Chinese martial artist do that."
Yeah, and also too, just like the way it's like shirt rips, but his shirt is such a weird animated texture. Like it doesn't look like it doesn't look like it's actually been animated to be colored. It almost just looks like it's a green screen, and then just kind of like the pattern just floats over his body.
Well,
and then he tears it.
I was gonna comment on that because later in the episode, he looks like a guy. He looks like me when I go to the pool. Like he's just wearing a white T-shirt over
I had a comment on that later too. There's like one scene where he's walking away and he looks like thick, like THICC. Yeah. Like he's thick, and it's like, whoa, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, But I honestly think the only reason he was wearing the white shirt in all of those shots is because it's easier to animate than having to sculpt his ridiculous muscles in every shot.
Oh, absolutely. And they are truly ridiculous. Like, in a show of people with ridiculous, like, animated bodies and muscles, like, his is, I would say, next level.
Yeah. He's the muscle guy. Like, he represents the idea that you don't need to be good at martial arts if you're just bigger and stronger than your opponent, which is an interesting
again, to
philosophy.
kind of like this, getting into this theme of this like season so far, in terms of they have this super prestigious tournament, and then just you don't really care what happens because all of a sudden, I guess, like Mr. Oliver is just now in the tournament. Is like, yeah, I want to just like fight. Why not? And then they're like, yeah, okay, he's in.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't make him do any like roof tile shit.
To be fair, maybe that guy was the roof tile equivalent.
I mean, he did basically the exact same move. He just kind of put his palm on his head and just kind of squished him. But
I was just gonna say, you're right. That is the exact same move Yujiro did to break the roof tiles. But yeah, so that was just a bit of a recap. The first real fight that we get this episode is Kaiohs Jaku versus Kaiohs Jin.
The only Kaio from Japan, Kukendo Master Kaiohs Jaku, versus Kaiohs Jin, an expert in Fujian Sangoken.
So Kaiohs Jaku is Japan's only Kaio, so we've got another foreigner, as they love to call them. And Kaiohs Jin is Kaiohs Jin. Do you want to describe this fight a bit, Phil?
It's really, this to me seems like super manga-y, because it's all like they refer to it, I think, as Sangoken. I don't know, I wrote it down somewhere.
Yeah,
but he's like, I have used my chi into my fist and used the power of the earth. And like, I've read a bit of like Naruto and like One Piece, and that just sounds exactly like real like manga shit. Like, I have channeled my like inner force into my fist, so now I can like punch up a power level or something.
Yeah, instead of saying chi and fist is what separated Chinese martial arts, it could have been like chakra and hockey is what separates Chinese
literally.
martial arts.
And then he kind of starts beating up on Jacko a little bit, using the power of the earth.
Ah, I see. Well, no wonder there was so much power behind your punch, because you incorporated the principle of earth, drawing power from this concrete.
Which is great. And then
Well,
there's
and
a line too.
He has the gall to say that like he's using the earth because he's an environmental combat specialist.
Chi, fist, earth. Sangoken incorporates all three principles. It's environment utilization, in case you don't get it.
Because he uses the earth? Like,
well, yeah, and at one point, Kaiohs Jack was like, yes, you're pushing off the concrete to push harder. Which, like, in theory, just kind of makes sense, right? Like, I don't know, like, you need a good base.
We'll get taught that multiple times this season.
And then Kaiohs Jin has the line, you're pretty smart, even for a foreigner. And I think this, like, I was even kind of thinking of this before we got into this episode. But I love the fact that this, like, Japanese manga is just setting up all these Chinese fighters to just get absolutely obliterated by foreigners, which has kind of been the theme up till now, I think.
Yeah, no, it's hilarious how blatant this show is. Like, I feel like at this point in Baki, there was sort of a formula, which is like, we have a cast of badasses, and so we're going to wheel in people to show how much more badass they are than the rest, especially the Chinese. So the fight starts off, and this is the only fight with a back and forth in the entire first round. Kaiohs Jin actually punches.
Even really, like, it's very minimal back and forth, but yes, there's at least more than
it's
one.
Literal back and forth. Or actually, you're right. There might not be a back and forth. There is one. There's one reversal of momentum. So Kaiohs Jaku goes in for the punch. Jin counters him using the entire power of the earth, and then Kaiohs Jaku, very on the back foot, inexplicably decides to try and pitch Kaiohs Jin on joining his martial arts studio.
Hey, Chin.
Huh?
Listen, why don't you come join me in Japan?
Huh?
I have 24,000 apprentices waiting back there. Why not come and train them with me?
Huh? 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 Huh?
Yeah, and then, like, going back to the commentator's like, a job offer now? And In the middle of a fight?
Seriously? Kaiohjaku is trying to hire Kaio-Jin? The match is still going on! Boy, he's got some nerve!
But Kaio-Jin takes this news as if, like, he's being brainwashed. Like, he looks like it's melting his mind, the idea that somebody would do this.
A job offer? Oh!
Come on, join me, Jin.
And he's got, like, the wide eyes, like, what is this?
Does it have dental? He's gonna
Well, he's gonna
need medical benefits.
Kaio-Jin, he's looking like pretty like mentory. He's got that nice like that beard going. It's like I got 24,000 students or something like that.
Yeah, that's Jaku though, but yeah.
Oh, sorry, Jaku. Yes.
Yeah, he has 24,000 students, and apparently he wants to, I guess, teach them Sengoken. And
I don't know, it seems like a pretty good deal to me.
Yeah. Well, what the weirdest part to me is, so he offers him a job. It completely melts Kaio-Jin's mind so that Kaiohjaku can walk up and dislocate his shoulder. Is his weird possessiveness of being like, after this tournament's done, come see me and I'll give you a job. Like it almost feels like he's claimed him after defeating him, like a Pokemon trainer.
Jin, wait for me at the end of the tournament. And after I win it all, I'll take you with me.
Oh, absolutely. I also want to really comment on, like, this Kaio is the lamest Kaio. Like, we've seen a guy get his face ripped off. We've seen a guy get, like, pulverized into, like, a speck. And this guy has, like, a dislocated shoulder. And it's like, he's out of there. Can't get back after that. It's like, okay.
So I will agree that he's the lamest so far. But I think that every other Kaio in this episode is even worse.
True. But just like in terms of like if you were I forget who the main guy is,
Kaku?
Who's like the mentor, right? Like if you had your face ripped off and then you see another Kaio
Ryu,
yeah. Get like kind of like his shoulder popped out a bit and he's like, oh, ow, and you're like, come on, man. Like
did you catch that Ryu survived?
Yes.
So happy. I was so confused because they just had a guy walk up to Retsu and go, he's survived his surgery. And I'm like, that could be 8 different guys.
And so like he just kind of dislocates his shoulder, walked away, and then the audience is still like, oh, he's another foreigner's like one. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Very disappointing day for the Chinese audience. Before we get to the final match of the first round, round 4 of a 16-person. But anyway, we get a fun conversation between Baki and his dad. As we know, Baki has always wanted to fight his dad, and he's finally back to, Baki's back. He's back to his healthy self. How does the conversation go?
I mean, it just starts with Baki being, like, pretty cocky, which I don't think is, like, out of the ordinary for Baki, but he's like, oh, come on, like, this isn't like you, Dad. Like, what's going on? Like, just talking to him in, like, a very strange way, even, like, for, like, Baki to talk in general.
Come on, this isn't like you. I mean, I figured you were just gonna attack me the minute that I mentioned challenging you. What do I know? I'm not the world's strongest man, or whatever that bullshit title is.
He has, like, this great line that's like, even if you were the weakest person, I'd only want to be a fraction stronger than you.
And frankly, even if I were one of the weakest creatures on the planet, I'd be fine knowing you were weaker than me. Even if I were only the slightest bit stronger than you, I'd be happy.
Yeah, I think I've quoted that line like 10 times on this podcast. And honestly, I feel like he might just be saying it mostly to egg on Yujiro, like just to make him really feel it.
Well, and that's it too, right? Like Yujiro goes crazy, and he's like smashes Baki into a wall, and has a great line that's like, "Did you really think you'd get a rise out of me?" But he's literally doing this as he's crushing his skull like into a wall, and is about to just like absolutely body him. And it's like
he does say that as he basically goes like, "You really got a rise out of me?" Yeah,
like that. Isn't that the definition of getting a rise out of somebody? Like making them like almost kill you.
Did you really believe that you'd get a rise out of me?
I loved Yujiro in that scene. First of all, his summation of Baki as being full of piss and vinegar, I thought was completely correct. And then his line where he's like, Baki, your leg's shaking. And then he just throws him through the wall.
Oh yeah.
Such a cool guy.
And then Baki kind of gets up and he's looking around, and then like this is another thing. It's like you just see like the way that like normal people react to things in this show is like actually kind of, I think, spot on, because there's just like a lot of people confused, being like, where did he come from?
You okay, buddy?
You just see this massive hole in the wall.
Yeah. Oh my god. Imagine if the RaiTai tower just fell down because of that.
Yeah, no,
it's kind of.
I mean, they've been doing a lot of structural damage to that thing. So.
Yeah, seriously. So Baki won't get his revenge yet. It's clear that he is still not on the same level as Yujiro. I think he even says, what was it? It was a good line. It was like,
"There's always someone better than you." I don't think I ever really believed those words until now.
Which is a good one.
But he's also talking about, he's like, is it shameful that I'm glad he wasn't there? So like Baki's got some good self-reflection.
Yeah. Well, this is the core of Baki, like, or Baki's character. I mean, like last season, Baki was just off on romantic adventures and stuff, so we didn't get a lot of self-reflection other than on how fighting is like sex. But anyway, on the topic of fighting, we have one more in the first round. Kaiohs, our good friend and chef, up against a guy, I didn't even write down his name. I wrote down Ringman, and then I decided to call him Shang-Chi because he's got 10 rings.
His name, I think, is Kaiohs-san. I think I have it written down. So that's actually pretty close.
And here comes Kaiohs-san, radiating quiet power.
Before we get to the fight really quickly, I just want to... The way that you are introduced to Kaiohs before the fight, you just hear these like classic anime groaning noises where he's like, ugh, ugh, and he's just like standing in this like really just like basic pose, and there's like a pool of water around him, and he's like, I'm practicing my pose.
The funniest thing, this isn't the first time he's done this. Like, this is the second time we've just met Retsu drenched in sweat, just sitting in a pose.
And again, like, I'm not going to be like too critical, but it doesn't look like that hard a pose. It's kind of like a little bit of a squat, and he's got his arms up, and like that's it.
I have to assume he's been doing it for like 5 days.
I guess I would hope so. Like if you're that sweaty, like after a few minutes, like yeesh.
Anyway, so Kaiohs against Kaiohs-san. So this Kaio has a fun martial arts style, which is apparently about grip strength. The amount of guys who can make their living out of having strong hands or fingers. But to prove how strong he is, he flexes his fingers and breaks all 7 rings, or all 10 rings that he's been wearing, that he says he's been wearing for 7 years. So pretty dramatic. Yeah,
it's a pretty cool fighter introduction, to be honest. Like,
yeah,
if you were to just walk up to someone, they're just like, "Hiya!" and like all their like rings would fall off, you'd be like, "Damn!" But apparently, it does not impress Kaiohs whatsoever.
No, Kaiohs runs up and grabs his hand to just say, I've never heard Retsu train his fingers at all, but apparently they're way stronger than this dude whose only gimmick is his fingers. And we get a great callback to Hanayama, who is always brought up, even though he doesn't do much in this show. I really want to get your opinion on this, Phil. What is more impressive? If I flexed my fingers and broke 10 golden rings, or if I used my fingers to tear a chunk out of a playing card deck?
In Japan, there's a gangster who's named Kaoru Hanayama. His grip is so incredibly strong that he's able to tear a chunk out of a deck of cards.
I think, they both have this weird, like, magician quality to them. Which is like, yeah, see here, watch as I rip this deck.
Professional magicians all do it.
But I think the playing cards would be more impressive. I don't know, something like playing cards have like kind of a waxiness to them, so to be able to just be like, whoosh.
That is my first thought as well, that it'd be slippery.
Or like it's not just paper. Like if it was a stack of paper, I'd be like, whoa, like congrats. But it those things are like, they got some heft to them.
Yeah.
But again, too, like, it's just like a total just like annihilation of this Kaio. Like he's made this whole thing about having the strongest grip ever, and then this guy just kind of is like, I'm good at other martial arts, and I just happen to have a stronger grip than you, so get bodied.
Yeah, so Retsu just completely demolishes him with his grippers. And yeah, that's the end of Kaioh's Son. Now, if you've been keeping track at home, the Chinese have had a very poor tournament so far. Retsu and Kaku are the only actual winners. And even in Retsu, he beat another Chinese Kaioh, so somebody had to win in that scenario. So China's lost every match they could except against Thailand.
And to go back to like that point too, is like even though he won, he was even saying like these Kaiohs are like, you call yourself a Kaioh? Like,
yeah, he
was weak shit.
He was very disappointed.
Son, renounce your Kaioh title and just start over again with stance training. Seems the Kaiohs are no longer the top dogs.
So this little sequence right here is why I love Baki, because it takes the tournament in a completely new direction. So Retsu, Kaku, the two remaining Kaiohs, and the three heads of the martial arts committee all assemble to discuss what the next steps are. Kaku talks to Retsu and says, like, did you notice how weak your opponents were? And they're like, yeah, Kaiohs suck nowadays. They aren't like they used to. And then we turn our attention to the heads of the martial arts committee.
Japanese ministers.
No.
Chinese ministers, sorry.
Yeah. So what does Kaku do to these guys?
Well, first you have these three guys that look kind of like, this is going to be a weird callback, but if you've ever seen like the OG Sleeping Beauty Disney movie, there's like the three godmothers that each wear these just like very colorful outfits, and they're both just kind of these like doddering old ladies. It's very similar, I feel like, with these old guys. Like they're each wearing these like very colorful robes. They're all kind of older.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, everyone give me your hand, which is already kind of like, oh, I don't know. So he has them all come in for like a little one of those. It almost looks like, you know, when you put your hands in, you say like, okay, 3 cheers. So they all get their hands in. And then the Grand Kaioh just goes ham and just pulls this like knife out and just stabs through every hand, gives them a good like karate chop, and it literally just shows their hands like skewered on the ground, and all of them just like cowering in pain and fear. I can only imagine. Out of nowhere too, I gotta say.
And he could just do that. Like, they run the tournament, and he was just like, off with your hands, you losers. Also, before doing that,
he's
he comments,
the Grand Kaioh. So,
before doing that, he comments on how feminine and soft their hands are because they don't actually know martial arts.
True.
What's that?
Our
Hands? Like this?
such beautiful hands, so soft and feminine. Now put them on top of each other.
Yeah, and I mean, like, shame on the Chinese fighters. I know that's said at some point. I have that scribbled in my notes, but I'm not quite sure where in the episode it happened.
I might have that line in my quotes. If not, I'm going to play it because it's my fave.
This is the worst crisis in Chinese martial arts history! No one could have foreseen that foreigners would dominate the tournament like this! Shame on you, Chinese fighters!
But it does happen. I don't like if it's not in this scene, it's appropriate because it's clear that at this point, like, the Chinese fighters are just not up to snuff. Why that's like the Chinese minister's fault is kind of like I'm not super clear on.
Well, you know why? It's because they invited all of the foreigners, and now there's a good chance that the winner will not be Chinese.
That makes sense. So it's kind of like,
yeah. And they might have had some role in naming who is a Kaioh and who isn't. I don't know. It seems like.
And then, yeah. So like the Grand Kaioh's taking it into his own hands that they gotta do something to make sure the Chinese win.
Yeah. So he decides to change the. Sorry, you go.
Oh yeah. So he decides to form the Chinese Coalition Force, which is just it's great. You know, like to be basically changing the tournament into now this kind of like 5v5 as opposed to winner take all.
Wouldn't it be great if, like, in the World Cup, like, Canada starts losing and then it's like, we've created the North American Alliance. We've merged
They just take, like, all the best players they have with, like, the United States and Mexico, and they're like, let's see what we can do, boys.
Yeah, the Western Hemisphere conglomerate.
But also, it's funny too because he forms this Chinese alliance, and then there's another Kaio, which I know his name is not Kaio Ren because I think I'm just thinking of Kylo Ren. But it's
I'm pretty
like
sure
that.
it's Kaiomo is the goofy goofy guy. He has the dumbest voice. He literally is like, "Duh, what about my match with Kaio Han?"
But what's gonna happen to my match with Kaio Han?
That's literally the voice I was going to use as well. It's comically, and then the Grand Kaio is just kind of like, oh yeah, about that, and then just kind of flicks him and like
Into the shadow
Kills
realm,
him.
like
just like eliminates him with a flick. Again, pointing out the idea that like these Kaios are just like they're just nothing.
yeah. So he has to get rid of Mo because Kaiokaku has brought in 2 ringers. So the dream team of the Chinese coalition is now Kaiokaku, the 146-year-old man, Kaio Retsu, our good friend, Kaio Han, who for some reason is still on the team. He hasn't done anything yet. And then Shobun Ron and Shunsei.
Brute and the Mad Beast.
Yeah.
Shunsei Kaku and Shobun Ron.
Shunsei the Mad Beast and Shobun the Brute.
So Shunsei is Kaiokaku's son from when he was 121. So there's some lucky lady out there who's Shunsei's mother. And Shobun Ron is such a fun guy, and we'll get to him in a few minutes. But first, we have to get the American-Japanese Alliance's thoughts.
They're really important first though, because like when they get introduced, like the screen flashes with like the Japanese characters of their names, which is like it's only happened very rarely in the series. So when that goes down, it's like, oh
yeah, and like even like Yujiro and like the reactions of people's faces when they hear those names is like gasp. Like people are impressed by Shobun Ron and Shunsei, and I will say one of them is very impressive.
What the problem too though is like there's no interesting character design in the show. So they try to introduce these like 2 guys that are supposed to be really cool. They just look like every other character. I don't know if you know what I'm kind of the point I'm getting at with that. But
no, I get you. Like you can't. There's nothing you could do to make someone more ridiculous looking than like Yujiro or Oliver. So like you just have a guy who looks like the 12 other guys that were just introduced.
Like Shang-Chi at least has that kind of cool suit and like scowl, but yeah, the other one just looks like literally he could be any of the Kaios. I would not be able to pick him out in the lineup.
See, I disagree. I love Ron. First of all, because his name is Ron, he sounds like just some dude. But he's always got his hands in his pockets. He looks very cool.
Oh, I might have them mixed up then.
Okay, yeah. Ron is the guy with his hands in his pockets.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's the guy I liked with like the suit.
Yeah, the other guy, yeah, whatever.
You see, I even mixed them up, so it just goes to show how. Anywho.
So Retsu goes to pitch this idea to the Japanese-American Alliance. So this team is made up of Muhammad Ali Jr., Mr. Oliver, Biscuit Oliva, Yujiro Hanma, Baki Hanma, and Kaiojaku.
And you say Retsu pitches it, but he's basically just telling them what the deal is, and then he's like, I'm going to go join the Chinese, so like you guys are on your own, which is kind of like an interesting, like, this guy, Kairetsu, is literally just like crying that Baki was healed, and then here he is immediately turning his back.
It's Retsu in his villainous ways. But my favorite part is, the reason I say pitch it is because Oliver tries to turn it into a negotiation, and he goes, well, what do we get out of this? And then Retsu responds with basically, we're going to kick all of your asses. That's what you get.
So what's the deal? If you're gonna make all of these demands, then it's only polite to present a gift to us in return.
The deal is... Our Chinese coalition force will be completely victorious.
Hey, wait. That isn't what I meant by a gift.
And to be fair, like, Biscuit Oliver was like, he really didn't like agree to anything. He just kind of like... just kind of came with his buddy, Kai Dorian.
They should have just kicked Oliver out of the competition at this point. Like,
yeah.
So we get a fun shot of the 5v5 lineup in the grand stage, And this is where we get the quote, "This is the worst crisis in Chinese martial arts history. Shame on you, Chinese fighters."
This is where it is. Yeah, like announcer 10 out of 10.
Oh, and and then he says something like, Yujiro Hanma giving off the vibes that they are going to win and laugh at us while doing it.
Yujiro Hanma's mocking us with his laughter! It's as if he's saying, we're going to win and laugh at you while doing it!
Anyway, and then...
I mean, it really, like, it's almost, like, makes me question, like, what the first point of the 3 episodes were, if they were just immediately going to set up this, like, secondary fight.
Yeah. It was... Well, honestly, I think it's because there were a lot of Chinese martial arts that that Itagaki wanted to talk about. Like Kongo Ken and Sunguken and Muay Thai. We got to see little tidbits of all of them.
A little power scaling too, I guess,
Yeah.
We'll get to it, but like it's gonna get off the. I have a feeling it's gonna get off the rails pretty quick.
No, it's been on one rails the entire tournament. Well, we'll see how things go. I don't like saying too much about the future. But so the first match is coming up soon, but before that, the Japanese American Alliance has a bit of a team meeting. Baki, who in the previous scene had said, I don't care about this tournament. You don't care about this tournament. Let's just fight, Dad. Talks to Yujiro, and Yujiro says, like, are you in? Are you going to join our team? And Baki has the really interesting line. I can't remember it exactly, but it's basically like, I hate you, Dad, but I hate the Chinese even more. Or something
literally, I wrote that down. It's like, I completely hate you. I hate your stupid face, your personality. Like, he says all this shit, and he's like...
Okay, look. I completely hate you. Your ideas, your way of life, your stupid face. I despise it all. But right now, we at least agree on one thing. How we feel about Chinese martial arts.
But I won't back down to the Chinese.
I don't think there's anything in Baki's character about, like, is this just, like, nationalism? Like, I don't know.
He's also, like, a 17-year-old boy, too, at this point. Isn't he, like... He's not, like, an adult.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, like, I don't know where this is exactly coming from, that he has such strong rooted feelings towards the Chinese as a child, but...
And, like, Retsu just, like, saved his life. Like, he's a guest in China right now. Like, anyway.
Yeah.
Like, there's so little on the line for them, right? Like, it's not like Japan is going to be dishonored if they lose the Chinese martial arts tournament. But, anyway. Then we get a really fun shot where everybody puts their hands in. Once again, like, they're going to go hip hip hooray, but they don't do it this time, unfortunately.
No. I was really hoping for, the
So-
Grandmaster to just...
Oh, to come in and, like, that would be so funny.
Sneak it back.
Yeah. So the final fight of the episode the first fight, Japan versus America, Mr. Unchained versus also inexplicably Mr. Unchained.
Shobun Ran's nickname. You do know it, right?
Of course I do.
Mr. Unchained. So which one of you is the real deal?
Shobun Ron, the mafioso, versus Biscuit Oliver. Do you want to describe Ron?
Well, they gave us, like, a whole backstory, as is tradition with any time a new Baki character is introduced. They just kind of, like, we could, like, subtly handle exposition, or we could just bulldoze through, like, a minute scene to get you caught up. So he is an underground fighter. He, from, like, the age of 15 to 20, I think it was, they said he just pretty much won every single RaiTai tournament.
Yeah.
Which is insane. And then he decided to go fight in the underground pits, like the mafia, like, fighting rings.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically just never lost a match for 40 years or something like that.
Yeah, he's
already
undefeated.
They're building him up.
He's undefeated his entire life. This guy is the opposite of, or actually, he's very similar to the death row inmates we met. He has never tasted defeat.
No, but he's not looking for it. He's like, no.
He's a professional.
And to describe his character, he has that, like, classic Baki, like, really sunken face, like, really defined, like, cheekbones and stuff, and he's wearing this full white suit. Not quite a suit, it's more like a Chinese garb, I would say. It looks kind of like a suit.
Phil realizing he has no idea what it's called.
No, I'm like,
garb.
So he's just standing in the ring, hand in pocket, and in comes Biscuit Oliver, looking like he's ready for bed. He's just wearing this like white T-shirt that's just like
So weird,
absolutely ridiculous on his like ridiculously muscular body. Like I can't really describe it.
Yeah, it does look like this is what he wears to bed. Because underneath, like, he's got, like, a weird vibe going on. Because underneath he's wearing, like, a small black Speedo, basically.
And it's also just, like, his legs are so thick that it's not like there's any, like, taper. It's, like, it goes from shirt to just, like, solid thighs.
Yeah. So he takes the shirt off, and the fight is... Oh, wait, I forgot. Ron...
Well, no, there's...
Yeah,
there's a bit to this.
They both have, like, WWE entrances. Like,
Yeah.
Biscuit Oliver comes in his little tiny white shirt and Speedo and takes off the shirt, shows off the guns. Ron is legs crossed on the ground, and he jumps 5 feet in the air just with, I guess, his thigh muscles.
You say WWE, it almost looks more like a Street Fighter, like like when you start a round and they do like their little like 5-second intro animation. He just like levitates up on his feet, but his hands are still in his pocket. He's just kind of like chilling.
Yeah. So Ron, so it's Ron versus Oliver. Oliver, of course, is pure.
I was gonna say too, and they introduce it as the announcer says it's superhuman strength versus the dark martial arts. Whoa. Okay.
Man, look at that face! Frightening! Superhuman strength versus dark martial arts.
The fight begins, and Oliver does what Oliver does, which is walk up slowly and basically do the type of punch that Donkey Kong would do. And then Ron pulls a hand out of his pocket to block the punch, and then uses his spear hand to slice into Oliver's flesh, which, as Oliver points out, even bullets can't do that. And
it's also worth pointing out too, like when you say block a punch, we're not talking like just kind of deflected it. Like he takes it on, and his is so strong that his feet sink into the
That can't be good for you. Like, I almost
the impact on your joints. Yeah, they say running's not great on concrete for your joints, but I can only imagine getting slammed into the concrete is significantly harmful.
I expect Ron to have like lost a 1/4 inch of height from like his spine just compressing. But
yeah, like you said, it's a very important fact that like he's now bleeding, and he's never bled before.
Yeah,
so this is pretty intense all of a sudden.
And then we get a very interesting end to the episode with Yujiro going, I see.
I see.
And then the end of the episode.
Well, he kicked Oliver, didn't he, in the face?
Oh, did he? Okay, yeah.
I think there was like a brief kick, and it looked like it did some damage, but then and then that's it. Like the fight ends right in the middle.
Yeah. So who do you think's gonna win?
Honestly, I think, and I as much as I hate to say this, because I think up until this point I might have had Biscuit Oliver as my winner. I think this is going to be the point where just the sheer, what's the word I'm looking for? Like martial artistry of the contestants is just overmatches his muscles.
An
I
interesting projection.
It's going to be Ron. I do think Ron is going to take it down.
Well, if anybody was going to beat Biscuit Oliver, it would be, the other guy whose nickname is Mr. Unchained.
Yeah, the spear hands.
Spearhand Ron.
No one makes me bleed my own blood.
That'd be a very good Boggy quote. Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, like this is and this is kind of what I meant to with power scaling. Like in the part 1s and 2s, Biscuit Oliver is like unassailable.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy like kind of gets him in like one go already, so it's kind of like, oh, okay.
That honestly, I feel like that is a big part about Oliver's character, is that like he is sort of the bellwether mark of the first 3 seasons. Like he comes in season 1, he's unstoppable. Season 2, we're watching him right now, this Ron guy looks pretty tough. And in season 3, when Baki goes to prison, Oliver is going to be a big part of that season. So when you have characters who are so astronomically overpowered like Yujiro, it is helpful to have somebody like Oliver to sort of show progression.
It's definitely like, I definitely want to go check out and see how this fight ends though, because like at the end of the day there could be someone.
No,
really
you should really watch how this fight ends. It's great. All right, so I wanted to check in with you. Did you watch the end credits?
I did.
What did you think of it? I haven't gotten a chance to talk about this yet.
Okay, so 2 points I'm going to make out, because I made a point too that, like, I think this is the best intro.
Yeah, it's a really good intro.
I also think the animation in the intro and the ending are great.
No, I disagree completely.
It's very different from the fights, at least. Not great. Maybe great's an overstatement. But compared to, like, the stiltedness of the fights, you actually get some, like, fluid motion, which is kind of interesting.
You get, like, a few seconds of fluid motion, yeah. And then back to still images of guys.
Fair enough. But the credits are just Muhammad Ali Jr. and Baki just, like, running up that hill, a la Kate Bush.
Now, that would be a good ending song.
Right now, we at least agree on one thing. How we feel about Chinese martial arts.
But then they're both running towards Kozue.
Yeah.
They both seem to leap at her at the same time.
Yeah. So what I love about anime is they love foreshadowing a season in the ending and opening credits. When I joke about the Kozue love triangle, it's not a joke. It's one of the big things of this season. It's going to be Baki, Muhammad Ali, and Kozue.
I mean, they kind of hinted at that, in the first season, or the first episode, right? When you kind of got those Muhammad Ali flashbacks. Or was it the second one?
Both, honestly.
So,
yeah. I will say also just that I found the animation in the end credits very cheap, because it's just running loops. Like, it's just guys running on like a background.
I guess I meant the actual running motions seem much more fluid than anything they've shown in the manga or in the anime itself.
True, they are moving, which is a big improvement.
But, yeah, I mean, I'm not quite sure how that's going to play in. I mean, this is a series that has traditionally kind of poo-pooed a lot of actual character development and plot for just sheer fighting, so see how that goes.
The nice thing is there's usually at least some character development. Like, the first season I feel like was Dorian's season. We got to see his arc. The second season, Baki got a big arc with his Kozue romance. Right now the RaiTai is just sort of a clusterfuck. It might be honestly Kaiokaku's story. But we'll get a nice Baki, Kozue, Muhammad Ali story to cap off the season. But that's jumping ahead. Phil, thank you so much for coming on for this early record.
Absolutely.
That's all the Baki we've got to talkie. See y'all next week.
See ya.